الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته وبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, this is the last of this series of majalis, that journey that we began from the last day of the Hajj. At least this set and this series comes to an end, but Azadari continues, Azadari of Syed al-Shuhada, in the form of majalis that will continue up until the Arba'een. And hopefully we can look and reflect on our lives from before the beginning of this month of Muharram. And we can say that definitely we were able to align ourselves more in what Imam Hussein expects from us and demands from us. And if we were, the reminder of Imam Hussein and his shahadat was able to make us a better believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was able to increase in our faith, if it was able to make us better followers of Ahlul Bayt, if all of these things were achieved, then yes, your grief and your pursa to Ahlul Bayt is acceptable. But if none of these things were achieved, then I guess you were just giving pursa to yourself and not to Imam Hussein. So hopefully we take these opportunities that Allah has provided to us. This institution of Majlis is indeed a great institution that we have. And I often give this example that when we start our schooling, a child goes through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, university, that you see that there's constant upgrade in his knowledge base. Things that he had learned or she had learned when they were in elementary school. Obviously, those things are enhanced when they get to middle school. Things that they learn in middle school were enhanced when they got to high school. And then eventually, when they make it to college and universities, their level and enhancement as far as their education is concerned is at the highest level. No child would come and say that whatever I learned in 8th grade, I'm going to be repeating it again this year. Because in worldly terms, we know what that means. That means they failed to understand. They flunked, and you're being made to repeat. So there's constant increment as far as your knowledge is concerned. And that's why we go through secular education. But then we have this religious education. And this institution that was well established from the time of Ma'asumin. We see that if we gather every single year and we repeat the same things, In the secular education, if you were to ask someone, why are you repeating? That is taking something as, because you failed to understand last time, and you failed, and you flunked, so you're repeating it. But in religious institution, you were to ask, are you repeating the same thing again? Didn't we do this last year when Muharram began? Didn't we do the commemoration of Syed al-Shuhada? And we'll continue to do it as we go along. So there should be something that we come out with the events of Karbala. And it should not just be a constant repetition. Yes, the historical events will remain the same. There's no distortion when it comes to the historical events of Ashura. But alongside with it, and as a beautiful example, is that every time you pick up this Quran, which has been between us for years and years, that scholars of Quran say that every time they picked up this book, they would learn something new out of it. It's the same 600 pages. It's the same surahs. It's the same verses. But yet the repetition is there. And the same argument could be in regards to the salat that we perform. It's repeated effort. Every single day we repeat the same thing. So does that mean we let go of it? No. It's an obligation upon us. But there's something that is attained every time we repeat the salat. We talked about salat the other day, so I'm not going to repeat those things. It's probably well in your mind, still sitting, that how 5 times performance of the salat. You know, when it comes to learning something scientific, when it comes to learning something, you know, which involves a formula, you learn it once and you don't repeat it. Then rest of your life, you go ahead and apply that formula in various places. A medical student who studied medicine, yes, new researchers are coming and they're doing their research. But it's the practice that they're putting it into. A student of IT studied whatever it is that they have to in computer science. Now with the practice in the field, they are enhancing. So when you learn something which is scientific in this regards, it doesn't require repetition. But when it comes to affairs related to akhlaq, it requires a constant reminder. Why? Because on the other hand, there's someone who's trying to always mislead us. So even if the akhlaqi values are repeated often, over and over, it is a requirement. Why? Because on the other side, there's someone constantly pulling us towards the evil. And so if you hear repeatedly ahkam pertaining to have patience, be grateful to Allah, regards to some of the vices that exist, regards to other things, don't say, oh, I've heard this before. Because it's a constant reminder that is needed. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Remind, because reminder is only beneficial to the believers. And that is the reason why we have this commemoration. Yes, the historical facts are reminded and remembered and repeated. But alongside with this sacrifice of Imam Hussein, there's still so many lessons that are needed to be explored. And every time you go through this cycle of Muharram, it definitely touches your heart and brings about this reform into you. And hopefully that is the case as far as this Muharram was concerned. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this is the last majlis, so I can take as long as I want, because I don't expect for you to come tomorrow. Yeah, you will leave. So that's right now, it's in my hands. And inshallah, I'm looking at the clock, I've just started. I don't have to worry about tomorrow, because who's seen tomorrow? I'm leaving tomorrow, and you know, may God be with you and the poor speaker that comes after me. So staying with this right with me, inshallah, of the discussion that I'm about to have. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There are certain things and certain elements that we see in the society that are brought up in reference to certain established facts. And you see that sometimes those things might not really mean anything, but at times they are directly in contradiction or in order to devalue the established norms. So if there's something that you've been doing all these years, which is an established fact, you can back it up with the, teachings of Islam through Quran and Hadith, and then you see something which existed parallel to it, but it wasn't given much attention. But now all of a sudden you see it is being highlighted. All of a sudden you see that it is given all the attention in the world. There's only could be one reason behind it, and that is to lower people's attention from that established fact which is being celebrated or commemorated for all these years. These attacks have happened on our commemoration of Sayyid al-Shuhada. These attacks are not something which is a new thing. In fact, many different regimes in the world have tried to suppress the commemorations of Ashura. But once again, because it's the pure blood of Shuhada that always comes up, that always stands out, and there's no force in the world. Because if Allah wants something to exist and Allah wants something to remain, then there's no force in the world that could suppress it or remove it, no matter how badly they try. I'm sure you've heard about the shagaf that is on the wall of Kaaba, the place where Fatima bint Asad entered into the Kaaba. I've been to Mecca quite a few times myself. I've seen it. My understanding is that corner, which is Rukn Yamani, is probably because people touch it a lot. They kiss it, just like how they try to kiss Hajar Aswad. The colors fade away, and it seems like it is broken. And then so they repair it again. And then obviously it is touched by millions and millions of people, hundreds and thousands of people on a daily basis, and millions of people every month and every year. Now obviously if you touch something on a regular basis, it will fade away and it will give in, and so they'll have to repair. That could be one of the reasons why it gets damaged and it's repaired all the time. But some people say, well, they try to cover the place where Fatima bint Asad entered. They try to cover as much as possible, but because Allah wants people to know, it comes out. That could be the reason as well. So no matter how much you try to hide something, think that Allah wants people to find out, people find out. You know the story of Zulaykha and Yusuf, that how she tried to seduce Hazrat Yusuf. And the whole story is in front of you. There's a lesson that is in this story. The whole surah begins by saying that it has, we've not told these stories, these are ahsanul qasas, and there's, lesson to be learned. If you look at the words that are used, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, what did she do? She took him into this room, and there were 7 doors that she locked before she got into this room. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. Abwab is the plural for bab. It did not say aghlaq. Aghlaq would have been just closing. Ghallaq in Arabic has more emphasis. That securely closed all of the doors gradually and forcefully, but Allah wanted the whole world. No way it would have remained. How hard Zulaykha tried. Behind 7 doors, without anyone's knowledge, doing something which even Yusuf would not say anything about. That he remained quiet. But because God wanted people to find out about it, there was no power that would have stopped that message from going out. And there are many such examples that exist. If Allah wants to manifest something, it is manifested. No power in the world can go ahead and suppress it. One of those things is this Ashura. That tragedy which took place. Now people will give you thousands of reasons. And it is really sad to see because of the era that we live in, that videos are available on your fingertips, and you search some of the garbage that is available, trying to prove that Ashura had no value, it wasn't this much, Shias go overboard, they exaggerate, so on and so forth. I don't know where they come up with all of this stuff. It is quite possible that our enthusiasm, because we press so much about something, from the other hand, we see a lot more, the word that I'm looking for, a lot more confrontation, if in a way. And so that's what's happening. So one of the things, and very quickly that I'll go through this subject, because I can open this subject and we can take it into many directions, just one aspect of it, which is the fasting on the day of Ashura. Now, it's a very unharmful thing. For one to fast, people can raise arguments that fasting, how bad could fasting be? It's a very important act. In fact, Prophet has mentioned that he used to be Sa'imud Dahr. That means he would fast all year long, except those days which was forbidden to fast. Many of the companions of the Prophet were Sa'imud Dahr. It's interesting that one day, Prophet was sitting with his companions. He said, who amongst you is the one who is Sa'imud Dahr? Obviously, nobody raised the hand except Salman. Salman said, yes, I fast all year long. He said, who amongst you finishes Quran every single day? Salman raised the hand. I finish Quran every single day. Prophet said, who amongst you spends the night in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Once again, Salman said, I do it. Then Salman got up and left. Companions started speaking. Magunya, Prophet, we've seen Salman eat during the day many days. He's lying. We've seen him eat during the daytime. That's when you fast. So he's definitely lying. Secondly, we've seen him sleep all night long. There's no way that he's saying he worships every single night, all night long. And he definitely does not finish Quran every single day. Because that is also proven that we've seen him. He spends the day with us, and he hasn't done it. So the Prophet said, okay, let's call Salman and ask him, why did he say such things? It wasn't under pressure or anything. Why did he go ahead and... Salman was called. Again, he's a student of Mawla Ali and Rasulullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. O Salman, you claimed that you are Sa'imud Dahr. Is that true? He said, it is true according to your hadith of Rasulullah. He said, what? He said, the hadith of yours which says, the one who fasts on the first of Ramadan, one who fasts on the first of the month, middle of the month, and the last day of the month. As if that person has fasted all year long. So I do that. Every month I fast beginning, middle, and last. That's your hadith. Fair enough. What about the second claim that you remain up all night performing the ibadat? O Prophet, based on your hadith, didn't you say a person who goes to sleep with performance of ghusl and wudu is as if this person has spent all night long performing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I perform wudu before I go to sleep. It is as if I perform ibadat of yours, ibadat of Allah all night long. He said, what about your third claim that you said that you recite Quran and you finish Quran on daily basis? He said, isn't it your hadith in which you say that قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ ثُلْثَيْ الْقُرْآنِ, that قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ is 1/3 of Quran, or قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرِينَ is rubu' of Quran? He said, yes. He said, I recite قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ 3 times, and it is 1 full Quran. This is why whenever you make the niyaz, right? Whenever you recite Surah Fatiha for someone, you recite niyaz or whatever, what do you say? You recite Surah Fatiha once and you recite Qul Huwallah 3 times. The reason behind it is this. It's as if you have recited the whole Quran and you have dedicated the whole Quran for that person or for that niyaz that you're giving. Prophet said, yes, you're absolutely right. You are considered to be Sa'imud Dahr. You are considered to be someone who has spent all night performing the ibadat, and you are like the one who has recited the whole Quran on each day. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is obviously shortcut. If we can do just this much, inshallah. Now, obviously, just given in regards to Quran, they used to recite Quran. But when it comes to Quran, don't rush through it. Don't be in a rush to finish it. Sometimes this is a race during the month of Ramadan. That because we've started, is a myth, that you started Quran in month of Ramadan, you must finish Quran in month of Ramadan. It's a myth. It is good that you finish. It is good that you finish in a timetable that you have set for yourself. But it's not something which is a wajib. Sometimes people try and make this thing to be wajib upon themselves, and then they end up neglecting other things. So don't do that. Do finish Quran. I know people who finish 2 or 3 times Quran during the holy month of Ramadan. Because this holy month of Ramadan, as it is, many things which were not, there's no benefit of it, you're getting benefit of it. For example, it says, أَنفَاسُكُمْ فِيهِ تَسْبِيحٌ وَنَوْمُكُمْ فِيهِ ibadah. Sleeping becomes ibadat in the month of Ramadan. Your involuntary act of breathing becomes what? Becomes tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the month of Ramadan. So when something which is recommended even outside of Ramadan, such as recitation of Quran, then just imagine the reward of a person who recites Quran. But recite with the understanding of it. Getting to my topic, inshallah, we'll try and close it out. That it's a recommendation. The ayat that I recited the other day as well from Surah Hashr, verse number 7, which says, whatever Prophet has given to you, take it. And whatever Prophet has made forbidden for you, refrain from it. And wattaqullah, fear Allah. Inna Allah shadidul iqab. Indeed, the punishment of Allah is severe. This is the criteria that we use when it comes to our ibadat. Once again, things that are considered to be bid'ah are something if you consider it to be part of Shari'at. So many of our practices of Ashura and Azadari is not something done out of, because it is part of Shari'at. And therefore, there's no concept of bid'ah alongside with it. It's not that if a person did not do certain things in the commemoration of Azadari, that person is going to hell. No, there's no such thing as that. You do it, it is highly recommended. You even weep, there's reward for it. You do matam, there's reward for it. But if you don't, it's not like it's a straight path to hell for you. No, that's not the case. So when we don't make something to be part of Shariat, it remains outside of Shariat, there's no bid'at, there's no concept of that. So one of the things that they raise is that the recommendation of fasting on Ashura by Banu Umayyah, which was due to the killing of Imam Hussein. We have a hadith from our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, who said, he said, Inna ala Umayyah la'anatullahi alayhim wa man a'anahum ala qatl Hussein min Ahl al-Sham. That indeed Ali Umayyah and whoever helped them in killing Imam Hussein from Sham, nadaru nadran. They made a nadr. They made a covenant. When you make a nadr, the fulfillment of that nadr becomes what? Wajib. So you made a nadr that I'm going to fast if I succeed in my exam. You were successful, what happened? You have to make this fast. It's wajib. Now, if you don't specify when I will fast, so there's no time limit. You can fast 50 years later, or you can fast within the next 5 days, as long as you don't specify. So by making nadr, things become wajib. One of the things that people utilize when they're going for Umrah or Hajj, that if they're unable to go to one of the miqat, they make another from leaving here, that I make another that I'll put on the ihram from Jeddah. When you make this nadr, what happens? Fulfillment of nadr becomes wajib. When you put on ihram from Jeddah, that counts as the ihram for you to perform Umrah or Hajj. You can do that. Maraji agree upon this. And this is one way of if it's not possible for you to make a trip to the miqat. But nonetheless, if it's normal situation and you can go to miqat, then that is something is your duty that you should go to miqat and put on the ihram from there. So that's as far as the nadhr is concerned. Nadhr is something which is a Qurani factor. Hazrat Maryam made a nadhr. The mother of Hazrat Maryam, Quran talks about it, she made a nadhr that whatever's in my button, I dedicated for the services of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when she saw it was a girl that was born, she said, oh Allah, it's a girl, not a boy. Usually boys are the ones who were serving the church or the place of worship at that time. But nonetheless, she made a nadhr. So nadhr is something which is a Quranic concept. It's not something which is, made up by Shias that they're making nadhr for this or nadhr for that. So Banu Umayyah also made a nadhr, nadhran, making this nadhr saying what? That if Hussein is killed and whoever comes out with him, wasarat al-khilafa fi ali Abi Sufyan, and khilafa comes in the hands of the children of Abi Sufyan, and yattakhidhu dhalik al-yawm eidan lahum. They will consider this day to be what? Eid for them. They'll consider this day to be a festival for them. And they will fast out of gratefulness towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is in our books, Amali of Sheikh Tusi. So here we see that in contemporary time, so these ahadith exist. And even in their books, these ahadith exist, and I will mention them very quickly. But in contemporary time, we see that there's more of this is being said from the manabir of Ahl Sunnah, or I would rather say manabir of Wahhabiyya more than Ahl Sunnah. Because, at least even when Ahl Sunnah do something like this, they don't do it in contradiction, keeping Imam Hussein's, message or trying to degrade Imam Hussein. They have immense love for them. It's usually this fitna of Wahhabiyya that creates these things. So, for example, one of their shuyukh, which is the, their mufti of the time, and obviously recently before the Hajj, he had made some comments, so he was removed from the duty of giving the khutbah as well, realizing what a blunder that he had made. But nonetheless, he said this. He said, his name is Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah. He said, فَقَدْ ثَبَتَ عَنِ النَّبِي. It is proven through Nabi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam أَنَّهُ كَانَ يَصُومُ يَوْمَ عَاشُورَى, that he used to fast on the day of Ashur. And then he said, وَيُرَغِّبُ نَاسْ فِي صِيَامِهِ, and he used to give targheeb to people to go ahead and fast. لأنه يوم نجى الله فيه موسى وقومه, because this is the day when Allah had given victory to Hazrat Musa and his qawm. وأهلك فيه فرعون وقومه, and Pharaoh and his qawm were, perished on this particular day. فيستحب لكل مسلم ومسلمة صيام هذا اليوم شكرا لله. So it is mustahab on all the Muslims to go ahead and perform the fast of this day, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهُوَ الْعَاشِرُ يَوْمُ الْعَاشِرِ مِنْ مُحَرَّمٍ, and this is the 10th day of Muharram. وَيُسْتَحِبُّ أَنْ يَصُومَ قَبْلَهُ يَوْمًا وَبَعْدَهُ يَوْمًا, and it is also recommended to fast one day before and one day after. So this is his saying. Another alim of theirs adds the same thing, but says add one day before and add one day after, because the riwayat says Prophet was copying Ahl Yahud, because they used to fast for the victory of Hazrat Musa. So to do mukhalifat of Yahud, don't just fast on the 10th of Muharram, fast on the 9th of Muharram, as well as fast on the 11th of Muharram. Here we will mention there's a difference of opinion that exists in regards to fasting of Ashura. Some believe it was mustahab prior to Ramadan. Some believe that this was abandoned after Ramadan's obligation came into existence. The fast of the month of Ramadan became wajib. Some believe that after abandonment it remained mustahab, as these people are saying. Some say it became mubah. Some say it became makruh. So you can have all of these, aside from wajib, you have mubah, mustahab, makruh, and all of these 4 other things upon it. What is our rebuttal? Inshallah, we'll have this discussion in 4 parts. 1, narrations by Ahlul Bayt in denouncing the fast of Ashura. I've already quoted 1 hadith from 6th Imam. We'll have a couple more. 2nd, sayings of Shia scholars on this issue. What do they say? Is it haram? Is it halal? If it's halal, is it mustahab? It is makruh. Fast of Ashura near Ahl Sunnah and their books and their scholars. And conclusion, why this is emphasized, and there are a couple of ishkalat on this subject. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So let's open up the discussion. First is the narrations by Ahlul Bayt. One narration I already recited from 6th Imam, keep that in your mind. Another narration that is mentioned, which says that the fast of Ashura was void after the fasting of the month of Ramadan became obligatory. It was void. It was matruk. It was considered to be something which is abandoned. So some of these ahadith are hinting that something which existed back then. So we have first riwayat from Zurara ibn Ayun, who narrates from our 5th Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam, who said, so all of these hadiths are proving what? That Muslims used to fast, but it was abandoned. It says, Kana sawmuhu qabla shahr Ramadan, that it was something which was done prior to the wujub of Ramadan. Falamma nazala shahr Ramadan turik. When the fasting of Ramadan became obligatory, that was abandoned. And that which is abandoned, I recited an ayat of Surah Hashr, verse number 7. What was the ayat? وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever Prophet gives you, take it. Whatever Prophet abandons you, said, abandon this, go ahead and refrain from it. So based on this qaida of Quran, looking at this riwayat of our 5th Imam, this was a fast which was abandoned. This is before, Ramadan became wajib. If Ramadan, for example, the fast of Ramadan becomes wajib, let's say in the 2nd year after Hijrah, then it was used to be practiced prior to that. We read that this is something which is done in order to celebrate the shahadat of Imam Hussein. And that is clear from the riwayat that I recited before. Another place, 6th Imam says, ذَاكَ يَوْمٌ قُتِلَ فِيهِ الْحُسَيْنِ فَإِن كُنْتَ شَامِتًا فَصُمْ. If you want to please Banu Umayyah, then go ahead and fast. That's what Imam says. 6th Imam says, if you want to please Banu Umayyah, then go ahead and fast. A lot of people ask, what's wrong with fasting? Well, go ahead and fast. Fasting is a good thing. It's something which we are normally told to do even on regular days, aside from the days which are haram. For example, if someone has difficulty controlling his or her desires, the first thing that ulama akhlaq mention is what? Fast. When you fast, you'll be able to control your desires. So it's the biggest help in controlling many of these vices that exist. So fasting itself, not looking at it from the aspect of exercise, losing weight or anything, but it has many, many benefits attached with it. You come to a realization how an average person in the world, those who are less fortunate, how do they live their life? You gain many such lessons from fasting. So fasting is something which is recommended. Yes, it is recommended. But when it is done in contradiction with the ta'limat of Islam, that this was something which was done in order to celebrate the shahadat of Imam Hussein, and that is something Imam is saying what? If you want to please Banu Umayyah, and if you are persistent about it, then go ahead and fast. Then the later hadith, he says the reward of someone who fasts on the day of Ashura. Once again, our 6th Imam is quoted by saying, he says, Man samahu kana hadduhu mithla dhalika yawm haddu ibn Marjana wa alu Ziyad. He said, whoever fasts on this day, their compensation will be same as the compensation of Ibn Ziyad, Ibn Marjana, and Ali Ziyad. So now, person says, Imam, what is their compensation? What is their reward? وَمَا كَانَ عَدْلُهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ قَالَ النَّارِ أَعَوَضَ اللَّهُ مِنَ النَّارِ وَمِنْ عَمَلٍ يُقَرَّبُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Their worth or their reward is the fire of hell, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take refuge from the fire of hell. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is response to some of our folks who are insisting that why shouldn't we fast? Some of our people say, well, fasting is not such a bad thing. Imam is giving you these examples. First, if you want to please Banu Umayyah, then go ahead and fast. Second, the reward for the one is same as the reward of Banu Umayyah and what Imam said. Second section is sayings of Shia scholars on this issue. So obviously, when we receive ahadith, if all of us were scholars, then we won't need maraja. We would be able to deduce the laws directly from Quran. You will be able to deduce the laws directly from Ahadith. That's why we have Maraji who go ahead and deduce and bring forth, looking at the language of Quran, how a lawyer would look at the language, the books of law. They are looking at the language of Quran, looking at it from the usuli aspect, from the jurisprudential aspect, from the principles of jurisprudence, and to derive that this is right or this is not right. So there are many things that go through it. One misconception that people have, that I know you don't, because, alhamdulillah, you've had alim here, but communities where there's no alim din, that their conception is, when one goes to Qom or Iran or goes to Najaf, what do you study there? Quran? Is that what you study there? Well, you don't need to go to Qom to study Quran. You can just study Quran while you're here. There's more to Quran that is taught over there in the seminaries of Qom. There's one of the major subjects is jurisprudence. You don't become mujtahid if you master in Quran. You become mujtahid when you master in jurisprudence, in the laws. And then when you master the principle of jurisprudence, which is usulul fiqh. So there are many things that are solved through the fiqh masail. For example, we have these 4 books. When we mention how many books do the Sunnis have, I'm sure all of you would know 6. And some of you would also know the names of those 6 books. We say, how many books do we have? Well, we have many, but it's Kutub Arba'a, the 4 major books. Don't worry, I won't ask anyone the names of them. But it's good to know. We have Usul al-Kafi. We have Man La Yahduru al-Faqih. We have Tahdhib al-Ahkam. And we have Al-Istibsar. These are 4 major books that we use to derive the laws of fiqh. But there are other books as well. But these are the main sources that we use. And when that is concerned, we don't consider these books to be what? Sahih. What does that mean? That means there are narrations in these books that could be problematic. That means there could be, narrations which are unauthentic. Because the author was only trying to do what? Collect all the ahadith that have emerged from Imam Masum. Someone might have just made something up. But because it had name of Masum in it, they included it. But then scholars later on went ahead and studied what is known as ilm rajal, ilm diraya, to ascertain for us that this hadith is discarded. This hadith is discarded. And then even if a hadith is not authentic, but the hukum or the meaning that is coming from it, which is in line with Quran, you go ahead and still use that hadith. But nonetheless, we have these 4 books. It's good that we know who the authors are. And it's good that we know the names of these books so that you and I can also, when we come, I'm not saying you become debaters or start debating, but at least it's good to know what your material is. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. What would you say? So the names of the books. First is Al-Kafi. Not just Usul, because Usul, Furu, and Rawda are 3 parts of it. Al-Kafi. Second is Al-Istibsar. Istibsar. Third is Tahdhib al-Ahkam. Fourth is Man La Yahduruhu al-Faqih, which literally translates as what? The one who does not have a faqih near him. So this book is sufficient for you. If you have this book and you're away from a faqih, that's what Shaykh Sadiq did. If you have this book and you don't have a faqih, then it is sufficient for you. So keep that in mind. What does our scholars say? There are various sayings. Some consider fasting on this day to be haram. For example, Marhum Khunsari, in his Jam al-Madarik, he said, وَجَزَمَ بَعْضُ مُتَأَخِّرِينَ بِالْحُرْمَةِ تَرْجِيحًا لِلنُّصُصِ النَّهِيَةِ. He said many of our scholars consider fasting on Ashura to be haram based on the previous 2 verses. Or rather based on the previous 2 rawayat. That the riwayah says what? It says, Imam is saying, your compensation or reward will be same as the reward of Ibn Marjana. Or if you want to please Banu Umayyah, then go ahead and fast. What do you get the essence of this riwayah? What do you get out of it? Imam is telling us what? Don't fast. Don't consider fasting on this day, because these are the possible results of it. So it is given us the hint of nahi. So he said, based on these riwayat, is tarjih. It is recommended that it is considered to be haram to fast on this particular day. And then other riwayat, other Muhaddis Bahrani, for example, in Hadaik says, فَإِنَّ دَلَالَةَ هَذِي الْأَخْبَارِ عَلَى التَّحْرِيمِ, that the dalalat of these akhbar, these riwayat that we have received from Ma'sumin, it denotes the fact that it is haram to fast on this particular day. But majority of the contemporaries consider fasting on Ashura to be makruh, such as, Syed al-Yazdi of Sahib Urwatul Wuthqa, Imam Khomeini, Ayatollah Burujardi, Ayatollah Hakim, and so on and so forth. They consider it to be makruh, not haram. Looking at these riwayat, comparing with some other riwayat, they deduce what? They deduce kirahat, and they do not deduce hurmat in it. And then obviously they say, if you were to fast on this day, in keeping in the perseverance of Ahlul Bayt, because they were deprived of food and drink, especially on this particular day, and you refrain from eating, but you go ahead and eat something at the time of Asr, preferably khaki shifa, a little bit, then you have acted according to what Ma'sumin want. That'll be in line, being solemn with the Ahlul Bayt and their tragedy on the day of Ashur. So that is something which is recommended, to do which usually you and I do. What is? Faqa. That is a fast, but you break it at the time of Asr. That is considered to be faqa, which is recommended by all of our ulama. That's as far as the second section. Third section, which is the most interesting section, and inshallah, I'll go through it very quickly without making you bored out of it. Looking at the riwayat of Ahl Sunnah. What is the riwayat of Ahl Sunnah mentioned? And here, I've only brought riwayat from the most famous book, which is Sahih Bukhari. They consider this book to be the most authentic book after Quran. So there are many sayings, a great deal of contradiction that exists. So keep this in mind. They call it Sahih, Sihah Sitta. 6 Sahih books. What does that mean? That everything in these books is what? Sahih. You can't refute anything that is mentioned in these books. There is no mahal of refutation as far as the hadith is concerned, because they are Sahih Sanad. So therefore, they consider these books to be Sahih. First riwayat is that Prophet and Quraysh used to fast before Islam. So this is even prior to, obviously, before migration and even before Islam came. This is from Aisha radiallahu anha. I'm reading the riwayat from Sahih Bukhari. An Aisha radiallahu anha qalat, kana yawm ashura tasumuhu Quraysh fil jahiliyyah. That she said that Quraysh used to fast in the time of Jahiliyyat, that is before Islam. وَكَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ يَسُومُهُ. Prophet also used to fast. So keep this. These are very critical for us to prove what we're trying to prove. That they used to fast in Jahiliyyat, time of Jahiliyyat. Prophet also used to fast. فَلَمَّا قَدِمَ الْمَدِينَ صَامَهُ. When Prophet came to Medina, he used to fast. وَأَمَرَ بِصِيَامِهِ. And he told people to fast. فَلَمَّا فُرِضَ Ramadan. That tells us that Ramadan became wajib when he migrated to Medina. فَلَمَّا فُرِضَ Ramadan تَرَكَ يَوْمَ عَشْرًا. According to this riwayat of Sahih Bukhari, hadith number 2002. It's very simple these days, and that's one good thing about technology. You go to Google, Sahih Bukhari, hadith 2002. Boom, it comes up with translation. What does this hadith say? It says you don't need to know the volume, the page number, the section, nothing. Hadith number, that's all you need to know. Hadith number 2002 says that it was something which was practiced in the time of Jahiliyyat. Prophet used to fast. When he came to Medina, he fasted. And when Ramadan became wajib, what happened? He abandoned it. وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Prophet said, don't fast. People stop fasting. Hadith continue. فَمَنْ شَاءَ صَامَهُ وَمَنْ شَاءَ تَرَكَهُ. Whoever considered fasting, they fasted. Whoever did not, they did not fast. These are the words of hadith. No mention of Yahud over here, right? Let's look at 2 hadiths down. This was 2002. Look at 2004 in the same book. That tells us, first of all, this first hadith, I don't want to start another debate. And again, I'm running out of my time as well. But nonetheless, I have all day I want because, no, I'm just joking. So we know that there's refutation when it comes to this hadith as well. From Ahl Sunnah. That's the beauty of it. You consider this book to be sahih, but your own ulama come and they mention that there's something wrong with this narrator. For example, this hadith is narrated by one of the people who's the narrator. Hisham ibn Urwa is the narrator of this hadith, 2002. One of the transmitters, Ibn Qattan, he says, إِنَّهُ اِخْتَلَطَ وَتَغَيَّرَ. This person used to mix ahadith and used to taghayyar, change the words as well. That's Ibn Qattan saying. Dahabi, another scholar of Ahl Sunnah, says what? أَنَّهُ نَسِيَ بَعْضُ مَحْفُوظِهِ أَوْ وَهَمَ. He used to forget many of his mahfuz. Back in the day, they didn't have recorders. They didn't have transcribers, right? They used to remember. Their hafizah was great. But he said this person, Hisham ibn Urwa, who's the narrator of this hadith, he used to forget a lot. And he used to mix and match a lot of hadiths. So that's according to their own scholars of Rijal. Second hadith, which is 2004, only two hadiths down from 2002. The Prophet had no idea about fasting until the time of Hijrat. How is it possible? The previous hadith is saying that Jahiliyat he used to fast. He fasted all along until he entered Medina. And then Ramadan became wajib, he stopped fasting. So based on that hadith, Prophet used to fast. Here it's saying Prophet had no idea. An Ibn Abbas, قال قدم النبي المدينة. Prophet came to Medina. فرأى اليهود تصوم يوم عاشوراء. He saw Jews fasting on the day of Ashur. فقال ما هذا? He said, what is this? In Arabic, when you say ما هذا, you're showing your ignorance. He said, ما هذا? That means you have no idea what's going on. They replied by saying, فقال قالوا هذا يوم صالح. This is a very good day for us, festival for us. هذا يوم نجى الله بني إسرائيل من عدوهم. Today is the day when Allah gave victory to Bani Israel from their enemies. فصامه موسى. Moses used to fast on this day. قال فأنا أحق بموسى منكم. I have more right over Musa than you, because I'm brother of Musa, Prophet is saying. فَصَامَهُ وَأَمَرَ بِالصِّيَامِ. Prophet told everybody to fast, following what Jews used to do. So first of all, you already see the contradiction between the two ahadith. I don't want to repeat to save ourselves some time. First narration said Prophet and Quraysh used to fast before 13 years prior to the migration, because Jahiliyat was prior to 13 years. And they used to fast. And then only after migrating to Medina, they continued until Ramadan became wajib. And even then, they stopped. Second tradition, the Prophet came to Medina, saw Jews fasting, asked, with much surprise, what's going on? Then he continued to fast. So you see some contradiction in these two hadiths. Thirdly, we mention a hadith from the same book, hadith number 1892 from Sahih Bukhari. And I brought hadith from Sahih Bukhari so that we don't go into all the other books, although their other major books are equally important. It's just that Sahih Bukhari has gotten the fame, and that's the reason I've brought only a hadith from Sahih Bukhari. It's a tark of the fast of Ashura after wujub of Ramadan. That hadith is also there, that it became abandoned completely after Ramadan became wajib. He says, so Ibn Umar is narrating. Ibn Umar is one of the most important narrators for Ahl Sunnah. There are only a few people that they regard to be, utmost respect. Ibn Umar is one of them, son of second Khalifa. Aisha is one of them. Ibn Abbas is one of them. These are the most important narrators of hadith for them. If you hear a hadith from, and Abu Huraira obviously, if you hear a hadith from any one of these, then it is, without any, looking further, it is considered to be authentic. إذا قال صام النبي عاشوراء, Prophet fasted Ashura, وأمر بصيامه فلما فرض رمضان ترك. But when Ramadan became wajib, he abandoned it. وكان عبد الله لا يصومه. Even Abdullah ibn Umar did not used to fast after Prophet had made it abandoned. So this hadith is compatible with the previous, but it contradicts with the second one. Prophet did not act according to what he had told people. That's really surprising. If I sit here from Mimbar And I yell every single day that don't lie, don't backbite. But then I do the same thing outside. First of all, it will have no effect on you. Second of all, even if it was something good, you would contradict me, saying you should go ahead and do something. Quranic ayat says what? لِمَا تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Why do they say things that they do not do? This hadith, and I again, with very respectfully, in Sahih Bukhari, is in complete contradiction with ayat of Quran. Ayat of Quran is saying, why do you say that which you do not do? And this hadith says what? It says the Prophet did not do what he ordered people. Abu Syed al-Khudri says, Anna Rasulullah amara bi sawmi Ashura wa kana la yasumuhu. He ordered people to fast on Ashura, but he himself never did it. So why would Prophet order people to go ahead and fast while he himself refrained from doing it? That just does not make any sense as far as we are concerned. Another tradition, which is in complete contradiction with Quran, the Prophet used to copy the Ahl Kitab. In areas where Islam was quiet, Prophet go ahead and copy Ahl Kitab. This again goes against the ayat of Quran that do not copy the people of the book. Why? Because of the contradictions and because of the tempering that has happened in their teachings, fabrications that have come along as far as their teaching is concerned. Do not follow them. So this hadith, again in Bukhari, 3558, says what? يُحِبُّ كَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ يُحِبُّ مُوَافِقَةَ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ فِيمَا لَمْ يُؤْمَرْ فِيهِ بِشَيْءٍ. Prophet would prefer to follow the people of the book, especially when Quran or Islam did not say anything in regards to something. So Islam did not mention anything about fasting on Ashura. Prophet saw them fasting on Ashura, and Prophet would go ahead and copy them. Later on, it says that Prophet would do muafiqat with Ahl Kitab, especially if it went against idol worshippers. So they're giving different criteria. Where would Prophet, first Prophet would follow Ahl Kitab when Islam had said nothing about it. Prophet would follow Ahl Kitab, especially when it went against the idol worshippers. لَمَّا قَدَمَ النَّبِي وَرَآ صِيَامُ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَهُ تَعْظِيمُهُمْ. And he went to the extent in regards to this fast that he would make even the children upon whom fasting was not mandatory. He would say, it is so important, fast of the day of Ashur, make your young children fast as well. To that extent. You see how far they want to take it, so that it becomes the most priority on this particular day. Contradictions. Interestingly, in the same Fath Bari, Prophet loves to follow Ahl Kitab, whereas later on he's quoted as saying, do not follow Ahl Kitab. In the same book, he's saying, Prophet used to follow Ahl Kitab when Islam did not say anything. And Prophet used to follow Ahl Kitab, especially when it contradicted the idol worshippers. But in the same book, later on, what is the hadith? The hadith says this, قال رسول الله لا تشبهوا باليهود والنصارى. Do not resemble Jews and the Christians. What happened? Not too long ago, Prophet himself was copying. And now the same hadith is saying, same book is saying, do not copy. In fact, Fakhr Razi goes to the extent that Umar al-Khattab was reciting Tawrat. أن عمر طال ورقة من توراة فغضب رسول الله. Prophet became, enraged. غضب of Rasulullah. He said what? If Musa was alive today, he would do my ittiba and not read Tawrat. So to that extent, do not copy. Although, I again find this hadith to be, I'm not denying anything, denouncing anything, but what's wrong in reading the books of other faith? We have comparative studies. We believe firmly in our faith. We believe firmly in our book, but we have comparative studies. So why would Prophet condemn such a thing? But nonetheless, we're trying to prove a point over here. All of these are there. لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِغَيْرِنَا لَا تَشَبَّهُ بِالْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصَارَى. Thank you very much. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Conclusion. Conclusion is, you see the ishkalat, and you see, I don't need to refute anything at this point. I've already emphasized a great deal from one riwayat to another riwayat. One riwayat to another riwayat. And this is from their most authentic book. And we see that the first ishkal is, when we refer to the history, we understand the change of year of the Jewish calendar or the Jewish culture is not entirely lunar, whereas our calendar is what? Lunar. There is lunisolar. So their day of Yom Kippur, which actually happened to be on the day of Ashur this year, right? That actually will go ahead and prove some points for them, saying, look, that's what we've been saying all along. Prophet entered the city of Medina, and Jews were fasting, and it was Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is what? Yom Kafara, the day of atonement. They fasted. So Prophet copied them. It happened this year. Yeah, it happened this year. But it only happens once every so many years, because their calendar is not lunar calendar entirely. It's lunisolar calendar. Even next year, it might be around the same time, because Ashura will be 10, 11 days earlier, and Yom Kippur will also be about 10 days earlier next year. But then it'll hover between September and October. This is where it'll stay. Yom Kippur will always be in September and October. It will not come in January, February, March, April, May. Whereas Ashura is possible. I remember when I first came to this country back in 1992, Ramadan was in the month of February. We're almost getting there. So whole cycle of 33 years, it is going to be again, inshallah, those days are upon us very soon, when Ramadan will be in the month of February, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So Jews was fast on 10th of Tishri', which is the 7th month of, that has 30 days in the season of autumn, and Gregorian equivalent September or October. So thus you have Yom Kippur, which just passed, so we don't need to prove anything. Second, according to Tabari, Ibn Athir, Ibn Hajar, Asqalani, collectively agree that Prophet entered Medina after migrating on 12th of Rabiul Awwal. We've been having all this discussion. It's like, why did we even have this discussion? If it wasn't even the day of Ashur, the Prophet entered the city of Medina. Tabari, these are historians. Ibn Athir, Ibn Hajar, Asqalani collectively mention the Prophet entered Medina after migrating on 12th of Rabiul Awwal, not in the month of Muharram, so that it will coincide with the day of Ashur. By looking at the various traditions from Shia and Sunni sources and refuting them by some traditions which we mentioned, we understand that Prophet did not even enter the city of Medina during the month of Muharram, for it to be 10th of Muharram, for it to be Ashura, in order for this to be a matter of conflict. Yes, riwayat exist both in our books, riwayat exist both in their books, but riwayat heavily mention that it was something which was done either in the Jahiliyyah time, or it was something which was done after Prophet migrated. And even if it did exist, Prophet abandoned it based on the ayat of Surah Hashr, verse number 7. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and fear Allah. Whatever Prophet has given to you, take. Whatever he has abandoned you and told you to refrain from it. Thus, what is our duty? Some of our maraji ulama consider haram fasting on this day. Some of them at max consider to be makruh. But you go ahead and do what is known as faqa. You refrain from eating and drinking until Asr Ashur, doing ittiba of Ahlul Bayt, and inshallah that will be maqbool. First of all, why would we even have such a debate? Why would we even have this discussion? I hinted towards it initially, and the reason is to lower something or the status of something. If you focus entirely on the concept of fasting, and it is constantly mentioned from your mimbar, and it is added with the riwayat of Rasulullah, which is in the Sahih book, then obviously people will be inclined on doing so. And when you are inclined to do this fasting, which is fine, people have always done it, but you do not neglect the other aspect of this day, then there's nothing wrong. But what's happening in the recent past is that not only that the emphasis on fasting has increased, but negligence in regards to Ashura has also increased. Refutation in regards to what took place in Karbala also increased. There's so many videos presenting What happened is just a fairy tale. What happened is not that important. It's not that Islam was depending on the Shahadat of Hussein. There's no such thing as that. Islam would have survived. The ayat of Quran is there. Kullu shayin halik illa wajha. Everything will perish except deen, except the religion. So Islam was not in trouble. There had been other atrocities, much worse than that. Why pay so much attention toward Karbala and Ashura? But once again, that which Allah wants to elevate, no one can devalue. All of the, their work and strive, their hard work in order to devalue this day, the tragedy of this day. And now the contradiction goes to the extent that you not only observe this day as a solemn day, as a day of sorrow, and show respect towards it, but you also go ahead and try and celebrate on this day. You find people in some parts of the world, just to show animosity, they'll go ahead and celebrate Day of Ashur, as if it's some sort of Eid for them. And then again, you understand the riwayat that we mentioned. That's why Masumin are so adamant about that if you want to please Banu Umayyah, go ahead and fast. If you want to have their reward, then go ahead and do it. But alhamdulillah, we've been able to refrain from this. And there's nothing that can devalue Azadari for us. There's nothing that can devalue Gham Hussein for us. There's nothing, no matter what happens, every single year, Muharram is commemorated with more and more enthusiasm. But unfortunately, there are so many things that are added each year within our own circles that is damaging this commemoration from within. And that is something which we need to be really, really aware of. When an enemy attacks from outside, you're able to point out that this is the enemy because he is from an outside. But when an enemy comes from inside, infiltrates, and causes dispute within, this is very difficult to pinpoint. And so that's the fitna that you and I need to be really, really careful as to a lot of these practices which are being introduced within the religion as far as the practices of Azadari. Those are really damaging toward this whole solemn observation. Inshallah, Allah gives us the ability that we're able to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're able to please Sayyid al-Shuhada, and we're able to please mother of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You heard about the Masaib. Today, in our rituals is the Soyam of Sayyid al-Shuhada. But what's Soyam? The 11th of Muharram was just as difficult for Zainab and company as the 10th of Muharram. And Soyam of Sayyid al-Shuhada is similar that way. We see that 11th of Muharram, the riwayat mention, Umar Asad comes and he tells Zainab, salamullah alayha, that get ready. We're going to move towards Kufa. Zainab is now getting all the family members ready. While they're trying to get their family members ready, they see an atrocity which is being committed. And that atrocity was that Umar Asad buries all of his dead companions, those who were killed by the army of Imam Hussein, performs namaz-e-janaza for them. But the bodies of martyrs of Karbala, Hussein and his companions, not only were they not buried, but as I mentioned yesterday, they were trampled. Horses were ran over these bodies to further cause damage to those bodies which were already in a very bad shape. And then helpless ladies can only watch, scream, cry, and weep and do nothing about it. But eventually Umar Asad says, it's time to move. We will send some men so that you guys can get on these horses and these camels. I want to paint a picture in front of you. When they had left Medina, how Zainab and company came. Imam Hussein was watching from distance. Abdullah ibn Sinan narrates the hadith. He says that one after another, the ladies were mounting the carriages on top of camels. A lady was brought out, and Qasim was leading. He said it was Farwa. Another lady was brought out. Qasim and Ali Akbar were accompanying. Said it was Layla. Another lady was brought out. Abbas is now helping, holding the hand of the lady. One was holding the curtain. One was holding the shoes. And they accompanied this lady, and that was Kulthum. And then lastly, a lady comes out that even Hussein gets up from his place. Accompanies, Abdullah says, who is this lady? That even Hussein, who was observing it all, gets up from his place. He said, this is Zainab. This is the oldest daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And that's Zainab. That was the scene when they left Madinatul Munawwara. In those camels, in those horses with saddles, in those camels which had carriages. But the camels that they have out in Karbala, for them to mount upon to go towards where? Kufa? These camels don't have any carriages, nor do they have any saddles on them. They said, we'll send some men. Zainab said, we don't need any men. Don't let any men come close to us. Don't you know? We are the daughters of Rasulullah. Janab Zainab helps every single lady get up on the horses or on the camels. She helps every single lady, even she helps Hazrat Fidda. Hazrat Fidda is also helped. She's very old by Zainab Salamullahi alayha. She mounts one of the horses or one of the camels, and then it comes the turn of Zainul Abidin, Bimar Imam. Obviously, he needs help as well. Eventually, Imam Zamana of the time, Imam Sajjad was mounted on this camel, but because he was so weak at that time, Imam was not able to control himself, and he would fall to the ground. They tied Imam's feet from the bottom so that Imam does not fall to the ground. Then it came the turn of Zainab Salamullah alayha. When Zainab was done helping every lady and Imam Sajjad mount the horses or the camels, it was the turn of Zainab to get up onto the horse. Well, I think she must have looked once towards the Maqtal. She might have looked once towards the Furat, looking for any help. Maybe Abbas would come and help Zainab. Maybe Hussein would come, but that was not to happen. Unfortunately, Zainab mounts onto the horse by herself, and eventually this caravan moves towards Kufa. This caravan moves. They leave the bodies laying as is in the plains of Karbala without burying them. After the qafila of Imar Asad had already left, the people of Bani Asad come out. They had the courage because their children came out seeing that there were bodies all over. The elderly come out and they're trying to identify the bodies. They have this much Islam in them that they want to go ahead and bury the bodies of these people. They do not know who they are. They try to bury them, but they cannot identify the faces because the faces and the heads were chopped off. And not just the heads were chopped off, they were taken away as well. These bodies were laying without any heads attached to them. And in this regards, they were looking how to go ahead and bury. That this was the 12th of Muharram, that they see at night time that a horse rider is coming towards them. They get scared for one moment that it could be the army of Umar Asad, but then eventually this man comes close. He said, don't be scared. I'm Ali ibn al-Hussein. I'm the son of Hussein, Zain al-Abidin. With miracle, with ijaz, and with permission of Allah, I have come to assist you in this regards. He said, this is the body of my uncle. Bury him wherever you find it. Bury him close to the Nahar. This is the body of Ali Akbar. Bury him over here in Ganj Shahidan. And all the bodies were buried one after another. And then he said, this is the body of my father Hussein ibn Ali. All of you step back. I will bury my father myself. When Imam was putting the body of Imam Hussein, they said, we saw some signs and bruises on his body. Yes, obviously there were so many wounds, but there were two bruises that were obvious. He said, we can recognize the wounds that were caused through the sword and the spears, but there were bruises on the body of Hussein. Can you tell us, O Sajjad, what are these bruises from? Imam said, yes, if you must know that my father, it was his practice on daily basis that he would carry a sack of wood on his back, and he would carry a sack of wood on his back and his shoulder, and he would go to the city of Medina, the houses of every poor and the needy, and he would supply food to them. Yes, as soon as Hussein left, all of those people have also become yatim, and eventually Imam Hussein's body, which laid on the plains of Karbala 3 days without anyone looking after it, eventually Imam Zainul Abidin buries. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we have committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, treat with us on the day of judgment with your mercy and not with your justice. Oh Allah, hasten the zuhur with Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Akhiru da'wana, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, Ma'atam Hussein.